All right, we're live, everyone.
Is that it?
Welcome back to it. We got the founders group and plus one. We're gonna explain that in a second, but just real quick for those people who are finding us for the first time, because we've had a lot of people join our community in the past month. I do want to restate what it is that we are. People are finding us and coming to understand what the power of a DePIN for cloud gaming, what that does, and how it's going to revolutionize the way that games are delivered to people everywhere on every device. It's going to make AAA gaming available to everybody, and it's going to make game studios an ass ton of money. Like the way that they can spread their game around through a DePIN like ours is just going to be phenomenal for them. So I would say, and I think you guys know this. I know, Rohan, you know this, but I was playing the version that we've got up. That you guys have up in Amsterdam. I was playing it here in the States. Game with a little lag, so I can get it tuned with Yorn, and I gotta tell you, every time he makes a new update, I get more and more excited. It's gonna be pretty awesome, this first game. So we'll talk about that when we get around to the roadmap and the things. The one thing we missed this year that we're gonna be a month away from delivering, but it's gonna be pretty awesome. So I'm gonna throw it over to Andy because we've got changes in the staffing. We've got Rohan here. We should introduce him to the crowd, but Andy, why don't you take it away?
Indeed. So look, we've added an extra person to the kind of the C-suite team, and there's been a little bit of a kind of switch around, and it's made logical sense as to this. Basically, we changed. Sorry, I first of all introducing Rohan, who was obviously waiting for me to introduce him there and going right. So Rohan's basically coming on as CTO, which he's been effectively running the role for the last quarter anyway, and doing a brilliant job and leading a lot of the projects. And just as a kind of concept for everyone else, Rohan's actually been with the project for 3 years, so he's not like a newbie who's joined. And I think he's proved his worth not only in an understanding of the technology and how to make it work, but also in how to actually handle clients, how to handle internal processes, and how to think laterally. So welcome to the party house, and welcome to the top team, Rohan. And we've already done this, but a bit more official now anyway. Now what that has meant, it's meant that it's freed up Jorrit a lot more time. And actually, as we've looked at what we do as a group and what we do as a kind of cohort, we managed to divide out the kind of roles and skills a little bit more in line with what they should be, first of all. So Jorrit is moving to CEO, and obviously that means, head of strategy, leading the team, basically stepping up above the technology. You'll still obviously be working with Rohan and the technology. They're in the office together at the same time, but also getting a lot more involved in the finance and the tokenomics element. So two congratulations there. Big steps up. So well done, guys. You should be very happy. Now, again, this probably for those of you that actually know me, this will make a lot more sense than probably the ones that don't. I've built and grown kind of small businesses up to medium-sized businesses or smaller kind of businesses. But my main skill set is the commercial side of it. So it's getting out there, it's selling, it's engaging with customers, etc. So the logical thing for me is to actually, or has been for me, is to move into a commercial role. So my new title is Chief Commercial Officer. We are still a group who engage all the time. It's a very kind of I don't think I've worked in a team where it's so kind of collegiate, everybody up for helping each other and really kind of pragmatic and thoughtful about each other's feelings, etc. So this has been a really good move, and I think it leads us very nicely into the new year with the things that we're going to be doing, which Jorrit and Jeff are going to talk about in a bit, and not missing out, obviously, the fourth person of the team, who sort of is going somewhere, but sort of isn't going somewhere as well. I mean, one of the things that Jeff is really good in, the title of CXO is always a bit of a funny title, isn't it? It's a bit like, what does it mean? It's experience. So is that an internal? Is it a gamer experience? Is it a node experience? And he's very good at those. But what he's also very, very good at is project management and making sure that things happen and things are tracked and things are done in the right way. So even though your title, obviously, Jeff, is staying as a CXO, obviously you are more of a kind of COO bolted in as well. So I'm sure you wouldn't want to be described as a pure tick box guy, but like creative with a bit more to him than just pure creative. Everyone's laughing at you, Jeff. I think the last thing you want to be is the accountant.
You're
I don't know
good.
how you still manage to just hook in the CEO role with Jeff anyways.
Yeah, Yor
Don't
and I
tell
had a
him.
long conversation about why COO is not where I wanted my title to be, but I mean, I still enjoy doing that part of it.
Yeah.
Rohan,
No,
you
we
want to say
thought-
hello to
I-
everybody and kind of let everyone hear your voice, and I'll give a quick 2-3 minutes about your experience with YOM, how you get started, and how you approach this role.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, thanks to Andy, Jeff, and Yurit and giving me this opportunity and believing in me. So yeah, and then like Andy mentioned, like I've been associated with YOM for, I think like for 3 years now. So I've been worked on different parts like NFT marketplaces, and then also kind of worked on the centralized version of our platform where we deployed on AWS. So we did that right from start to end. Deploying the games as well as doing the auto scaling part as well. The challenge that we ran into was of course the pricing part. That's why we moved to DePIN, and then like I've been working on the DePIN right after that, of course with amazing team that we have here. The tech team is fantastic. Yeah, and then like overall I have around 15 years of experience into software development, and then moved here from India. It's been 5 years now. So I followed my wife here. So she got an offer, and then I said, okay, I would like to join you. And then we moved from India to the Netherlands. Yeah, thanks to her. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this. And then yeah, there's also an exciting stuff coming ahead that we'll surely talk about in a while. But yeah, thanks again to everyone and to the community as well.
What people can't tell because he's seated down is your Rohan fits into the Netherlands just fine because he's also like 6 feet sky or something like that, something very, very tall, which you don't necessarily notice until he stands up, and then you he towered over me just like everybody else in the.
I would say in the Netherlands he's average.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like for Indians.
For the rest of the world, it's freakishly tall. All right, so I was going to bring up the roadmap from 2024, so we can kind of look at all the tick boxes. And let you kind of talk about what we've accomplished in the past year. I mean, we'll all kind of jump in and support, what you're going to be saying. But I kind of thought that as this is the end of year wrap up, and many projects are doing this, it's worth going back and looking at what was said was going to happen, and then what we did actually have happen. And I kind of like where we landed. So let me bring that up, and I'll zoom in a little bit, see if that allows for it.
Yeah, maybe you can also directly tie into what Rohan basically said, right? So at the beginning of the year, our entire stack was basically built on AWS, right? So it was a centralized stack, but it still contained all of the features we developed over the years on the pixel streaming side, right? So we were able to do the authentication, we're able to handle very low latency pixel streaming, embedding that cross-channel, etc., etc. However, the only thing that was missing was the DePIN part, right? Which we did kind of like anticipate on, but we were in the years before we kind of anticipated, okay, DePIN is going to be a long journey ahead. So we first want to get the pixel streaming working, and it worked. So we did several projects also with that stack. And then, during the first half a year, I would say of this year, we kind of like rewrote the SDK to also match the new paradigm, the new vision we had on building actually for a cloud gaming ecosystem. So one thing that we also noticed is, okay, there is cloud gaming, and it's very nice. That means that your AAA games can run on every device, right? But the problem is that the game engines themselves, they don't support out of the box developing environment or a dev or a test environment to be able to quickly test out the responsive games and the cross-device games you're building. So we knew, like that the biggest feature to add to the stack is giving devs that ability to be able to build a single game that then is deployed to every different channel, but also every different device, right? So Jorn especially, that's one of the Unreal Engine devs, the SDK devs here in the team, has been making big strides on that. He's also been reworking it from the inside out. So previously, the focus of the games has been primarily on third person and first person game modes, and we're now basically able to spawn any type of game, right? So that means that any type of game, so RTS, click-based adventure games, doesn't matter what it is. It's now, we're now able to just deploy that on the ecosystem. So that's the first half year. We rewrote the white paper to also match the DePIN, the decentralized proposition. We started also doing a lot of modeling on that, a lot of preparation. We joined also the Outlier Ventures and the Borderless programs that allowed us also to get into contact with the Peak, our friends at Peak. So more on that later, maybe not for this call, maybe in a future call.
But you know what's interesting, I went back and looked at my notes. Our first conversation with Peak goes all the way back to May 3rd. So we've been talking to them, I mean, 7, 8 months now.
We've actually been talking to them before we got into the Outlier Ventures program, right?
Oh, right.
We got into the Outliers and then we reconnected with them. Because of course, building this whole
we met them in Dubai, didn't we? It was at the Dubai event.
Would have been April. Yeah, you're right. You guys did.
April.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we did.
I think you were there.
That's right. We went to the booth, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we were drinking lots of gin and tonics, which is probably why you don't remember it as well as you should do.
Yeah, I think so. Let me finish, right? So we built the SDK. That was all done. We did the initial modeling of the DePIN. Then mid this year, we launched app.yom.to for the public. So that allows basically the community already to get onboarded as users, to whitelist for nodes. We have now more than 20,000 users on our app. 2 months later, we did the Get Real campaign also with our friends at Peak that allowed us to really significantly boost the amount of users that we have. We launched the bounty system, a YRX system that also forms the basis and the foundation for the node platform as well. In the meantime, on the background, we did at the Singapore, the Solana Breakpoint event, Jeff, with support also from the back office, from the devs here at the office, we basically deployed a private node in a private network at Singapore, in Singapore at the event. That was a massive success. So we had a lot of people playing AAA games on their mobile phones. So the demo was developed, everything was live, and then afterwards we decided, okay, we want to now move this towards a public alpha net as fast as possible. That happened, I think, in a time span of like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So we had the initial internal nodes set up, and it worked flawlessly. Jeff tried those games also from the States because they were running actually in Rohan's house.
Yeah, it's still running.
Attic. It's still running.
And we use it for demos at this point.
Yeah,
so it's still running.
We use it for demos, but the only unfortunate part is that we decided not to release it to the public because we only have Rohan's node active on the network, right? So if we would now just deploy it and then make it public, people will be like, no, it's full. I see a black screen. I'm putting in a queue. I have to wait for 6 hours before I get entered, right? So you could actually argue that it is kind of like a luxury problem. It's kind of fun to just do that. But we decided against it, and we basically said, okay, we want to run some more public nodes. So aside from the internal test node that Rohan is running, we have now invited several users also to start testing. So that includes people from Uruguay, from Japan, of course, from the Netherlands, from all over the world. So that's really exciting, and I think they kind of like now bash into the 2025 roadmap. This kind of stuff.
Talking about the node running in Rohan's office, I was listening to the audio from that call you guys had on Friday. I didn't realize that the retail hardware is better in most cases than what you find in the central server. You knew this already, York, but I was surprised to hear that part. The guys at MetaGravity kind of let us in on. Is that surprising?
Yeah.
I mean, how long you guys know this, and why didn't anybody tell me?
I think it's also
Mate, even
that,
I knew that as well. I'm afraid, Jeff. Just first line support knew it. So
Yeah, I think it can be explained by several reasons. First of all, Amsterdam probably has a better line to the States than Switzerland or Ireland. These were like hotspots where we used to deploy on Amazon. And
Right.
also you have like the firewall, like routing efficiencies you gain by just having a singular entry to the network. But yeah, like we still have to look into why this is the exact reason.
Why is it so successful? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, all right, so let's talk a little bit. We have an item here to talk about because no year is perfect, and certainly we did have a struggle that we don't want. So after this broadcast, I've got an article prepared that Yori has done apparently a heavy edit on. So I'll go back and look at the heavy edit. But I have an article ready to go that kind of summarizes our year and goes through some of the stuff we're talking about right now. And the one challenge that we did kind of catch ourselves on is our social media and marketing for this past year really has not been the forward focus. We were really concentrating on the tech and on the investment stuff, and we heard a lot from the community about, hey, why isn't there more going on in the outreach, the social media outreach, and the marketing effort? So, I mean, that's something that we've got a plan to address. Again, fortunately, the Peak team has already stepped up to start helping us out, and we've seen since joining their Get Real campaign, which has got a number of different DePINs in it, but we're the only gaming DePIN involved in their Get Real campaign. We've seen a massive increase in our visibility. Every week we get to re-engage with their community and bring more people into ours. So far so good. We're talking to them. I'm talking to the mods now that we got. So we've added back in. You might know more about this, but the guys we have back in as mods, they were our original mods. Is that right?
Yeah. So some of them were original mods, but also from the YOM Ambassador program that Jeroen, like he's still sometimes doing marketing stuff for YOM. He's also currently in the chat. He knows some of the mods. So for example, Jane, I believe, was also from the YOM Ambassador program. We still have to ask her, but yeah.
Nice. So we brought them back in, and it's good to have them back on board. I mean, they know the moderation group we had before. They didn't know the product very well, and they had struggles, and we worked with them as best as we could. But honestly, it's good to have familiar faces back, people who understand the product and they have the same kind of passion that we do on the team. So that's one change made. Including on top of the Peak stuff, and then that group is looking now at how do we do engagements like events and poker nights and gaming nights and finding things to do inside of Discord as a group. So we'll roll those out as the new year ramps up, and as we go into other parts of sorry, I get distracted by the chat. Can you do something about games to be built on YOM? Okay, yep, we've definitely we'll get into that question. So the next, you're highlighting the partnerships.
I'm not doing anything.
No, you maybe it's Andy. So one of the things that we did accomplish was one of the things we did accomplish we shouldn't certainly leave on the ground is that we signed on a K4 Rally and Domination to be added to the alpha launch. When we get this alpha going live, it's not a single game, but there's probably be 4 experiences at this point that'll be live once we open it up to the public. And that's important, right? Because we want to test the handshaking, the passing from node to node, the orchestration, and not just it is a test, right, to orchestrate with a single game, but a better test to orchestrate other different experiences and find out how our orchestrator handles, getting a node to spin up both this game and the other game. Well, much of what this alpha test is to get some metrics so that we know that our
just let me hook into this, right? So the reason we're doing this, because you see a lot of DePINs now launching with nodes, and they're doing fine, right? They're raising, of course, like millions and of dollars, but we are doing it quite differently, right? So rather than allocating some fixed pool of rewards in our treasury and saying, okay, we designate that pool specifically as rewards, and we will just freely hand that out. We actually look at this more like from a circulating perspective, right? So we need, we basically we want external money to have some inflow into the ecosystem and use that money to pay out the node operators. So it's
almost like an actual business,
like an actual business that produces value, where the node operators actually get paid for useful work, right? So, and that really sets us apart. I think as we're also making a lot of strides within DePIN, the DePIN industry by itself, it's quite a tiny ecosystem. So we're seeing like the same players popping up all over the place. It's quite interesting how the landscape by itself is evolving so rapidly. So there are now node as a service providers. You have dedicated blockchains. You have delegation contracts. You have data centers now also changing their model towards DePIN. It's really, really exciting and new, this space. And also together with Peak, we're actually like pushing kind of like on the front line of the industry what needs to be developed within the DePIN landscape as a whole. So we're in talks with all of those key foundational DePIN partners that are building the tech for tomorrow's future. And we're like setting out that roadmap going forward. So that's really exciting. And Rohan is also playing a very strong part in that. That Rohan is also like, okay, this doesn't exist yet. That's interesting. So let's develop it, right? And then we're pushing those first miles, and then we see all of those node as a service providers following us. And then also with Peak, of course, like the blockchain for DePINs is also incentivizing to make those moves going forward. So that's really exciting to be there.
So Andy and Rohan have been on those calls with those service groups, and I've never been able to sit. I've never even sat in on a single one. How do those calls go? You feeling like maybe Andy first and Rohan, but how do you feel like they're matching our initiative or our plans?
Wow. I think there's two types actually. I think there are ones that are just basically data centers that are providing a service, which effectively means they're going to run down the token revenues coming from whatever provider they're with, and then they're not going to be profitable anymore. In the same way that Jorik was talking about, some of these DePINs have fixed token. Eventually, you're going to run out of tokens, and eventually it's going to become unprofitable, and they're just going to stop existing. And then we've had other ones which I really like, and I'm sure Rohan's the same, but I think a lot of it comes down to the mindset of the individuals and the people that we're talking to. Some are looking at it very much like it's a cash grab. How do we make money? How do we make money fast? And other ones are like, right, okay, how do we redevelop what's happening in the world? And how do we, I'm sure you've all heard me say this loads of times. Michael Dell said there's something like we need 100 times the amount of data centers that we've got already. And that's pretty much only for AI. When we add in what we're doing, we need thousands of, GPUs, thousands of, PCs. And the people that think in the right way are going to be the big thinkers in the space. That's my opinion anyway. What do you think, Rohan?
Yeah, for this, like the calls that we have, the challenge is more finding the right GPU and the GPU providers, right? And with the right configuration, so with sound card, and also currently they are more focused on providing for blockchains and like validators and all, which is like plug and play. But when we come up with our requirements, okay, no, we need this is, then it's a step back for them. Okay, we'll think about it and we'll get back. So there's a lot of back and forth, but I would say it is going in a positive direction. They are also excited, and then a lot of conversations then we have about like Yurik mentioned about delegation contract and undelegate, and then rewards and what type of games that you will be hosting, and then sound card and all.
So we've got a number of questions that are popping up. I'm going to jump through where they make sense in the conversation if I can. And we just had one calling out that Yurik got his haircut, and yeah, he did. Now the rockstar career is gone. So it looks good. But we just came up with this question. Can you explain why data centers are less attractive to run these nodes compared to the actual random nodes of a user? But basically what they're saying is self-hosting. Why is self-hosting better than a data center? Though even the data centers, they're helpful to us, in some ways. I'll throw it to you, Ron, since you were already kind of in that area. What about the difference of the two setups, and why is ultimately the self-hosting the better option for us long term, but doesn't necessarily have to be at the beginning.
Yeah, there are many aspects to it. So first is the latency, right? So for self-hosted, so data centers are more centralized, right, in a way. And then self-hosted is like we tell them, okay, the nodes are going to be on different locations, and then the latency would be reduced in that aspect. So that is one. And then of course the rewards are more for self-hosted, because for delegated or for data centers, you don't need to pay for the nodes per itself, because you have the node and then you are using the self-hosted part of it. So the rewards are definitely higher in that sense. So that is of course enticing, and then long term it is a good approach, definitely.
Yeah, so indeed, for self-hosted, you only pay for the electricity costs,
Yeah.
which scale proportionally to how your system is being utilized on a network, right? So when the network activity is low, you also pay a lower fee in terms of electricity. And the
Sure.
general electricity fee is, of course, lower than renting a GPU. When you're renting a GPU from some NAS provider, you're paying a fixed fee. Right, so that fixed fee could actually be higher than your rewards on your node. So there is this risk part attached to it. Now, usually that wouldn't, of course, be the case, because we're adding all of these optimizations on top of the compute they provide, and we directly interact with our clients. So there's this value markup. So like in general, you make a lot of profit on your node, but if the node is running no sessions at all, on a delegated node, it would be running at a loss, right? So even with the minimum payout involved, which is not the case when you're going for entirely self-hosted. You will never make a loss.
And then what we like about the idea that the having these partners like IO.net helps us with scaling immediately in the short term, but ultimately having the self-hosted devices and the hardware out there helps us scale and reach it helps us scale both regionally, and then again, as people upgrade their home systems, they're upgrading our network. So we have the upgrade cycle is kind of again much easier for us to get the system to run even better each time, right?
So Leith also asked a question, by the way.
Yeah, she did. So the question was asked: when do the nodes go live, and are we offering hardware? Yeah, I think that kind of leads us into the what's ahead conversation that I think, Rohan, I got you flagged to start us with the talk about the alpha test, and that'll get to the question of when the nodes go live and when can we offer hardware.
Sure. Yeah. So like as Jeff mentioned earlier as well, like what we are planning is like to divide this test net into 3 different waves. So first is like the first wave that we plan to launch is around January. So there we plan to launch a game as well as around 15 nodes. So in the background we are working on a lot of aspects, right? First is like deploying the right game, then deploying it on different nodes. Then checking the stats of how the game is running, then doing all the orchestration in the background as well. Like if a player comes and tries to join from Netherlands, and then that the player should be connected to the nearest possible node in the Netherlands. Then if someone joins from Asia, that is also one thing. So the orchestrator that we've been working on for like a couple of months now. So and this is the time that we want to test that as well, and then gradually take it to the next steps by adding more nodes and more games to it, and then we expand it to our community as well for them to test it out as well. So I think that's the plan. So this is more of gathering as much as data as possible, and then testing it out, and then defining the next steps as well. Okay, what is working out and what do we need to improve on?
Yeah. So the way that we've kind of talked through how to do these test waves is the first wave, about a dozen people. We have all those machines be very similar to each other, so it mitigates not having a lot of risk. We're not adding a lot of trying to hit many different GPUs, and just kind of keep them similar because we want to get that first 12 up and running. When that is up and running and stable, then we add in another 12, and this one will maybe have some AMD graphics cards. We'll try some different configurations to test to see what happens when we add a new variable. But you only really, when you do these tests, you only want to add a single variable, or as little variables as possible between each set. And then after we've got those 24 now up and stable, we go to add another 24, so it gets up to 48 or close to 50. And then again, we're covering more regions. We'll have some more variations in there. Now we could go live, and one of the plans I offered up to the team is we could go live after the first 12 are up and stable. We could make one of the games go live to the community, and that could happen as early as January. And if that works, we could, and it's all stable, then we could jump in and start delegating at that point, right? So while we have 2 streams going, the second 12 that have some variations, AMDs and all that, that could be running. They could be running one version of the game. Well, the live version of the game is open, available on the first 12 plus delegated codes. So that can happen. We could, and there's a lot of arguments for making that happen. We go live with with an open alpha, right? Now the hardware question becomes, if Andy, I'm going to throw this over to you to talk about hardware, because there are really logistics when we go to hardware. We know we want to do it because it makes it easier, plug and play, and people can just go. But there are logistics involved in hardware, manufacturing and distributing. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is where the delegated node comes into its own. We could do it really fast. We could do the hardware straight away, get it all distributed, and as Jeff said before, it goes out and it's not tested. And I think with a lot of DePIN projects, they tend to sell first and then solve the problem later. A bit like, I always judge this on Oracle versus SAP. Now, SAP, typical German business, they build the product, they make it work, then they go out and sell it. Oracle, great business as well. They go out and they sell the product, then they come back and build it. We're very much like SAP. So we're going out, we're testing all the different variations. And there are quite a lot of variations, not only in, node quality. So with the SSDs that we're talking to, there must be thousands of different businesses. We've narrowed it down to 3 that we want to deal with. And I won't go into names just because obviously, we're in final stages of testing and selection, but one of them is 1.5 billion turnover. The other one is 6 billion. And the third one is 20 billion. So they're all top 20 in the world. Now, the distribution of these, the uploading and all that kind of stuff, we've got it sorted now. We know which ones. We've got it down from thousands to these 3. They can all do it, but again, it's not the easiest thing to do. So we want to make sure when we do it properly. Yeah. Does that answer the question? About?
Yeah, it did. I'm just answering the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah, because there are like specific questions asked by Nerdgasm. We know his name by now, and very interesting because just open also like the numbers next to it. So how much income and profit would one node make for YOM running full-time work on an average card like the 4060 Ti? Okay, so here's a little bit of something that we changed in semantics, right? So we now say, okay, a gaming rig can host multiple nodes, right? They can host up to 8 nodes. And we do that because the node effectively acts as a container, as a compute unit that kind of provides a range of rewards. So it's standardized in a way. Whereas indeed, Boudewijn, as you're saying, with like you're mentioning a card like a 4060 Ti, which is then we have to figure out, okay, how many nodes work on that specific setup, because it's not just the 4060 Ti, but it's also the RAM and the CPU and all of that stuff. So to avoid getting into these constant discussions of like how much money I'm going to make on my specific setup, what we're going to work on is release a tool. And we already have like a rough tool available, but a more improved benchmarking tool where you can assess before you purchase how many nodes you can run on your specific setup, right? A single node provides on average about $90 in yield, but it can actually go up to $140 per node, right? If your gaming computer allows for 8 nodes, that's about $700 for your gaming rig, right? Like assuming 50% workload. Now, when is that 50% workload reached? That is entirely dependent on the games we're distributing and sharing around, right? So that is very much dependent on that. We have made quite a lot of calculations on the different types of games out there. It follows some kind of Pareto distribution. So we have to also identify, okay, what are the best partners to work with, because we don't necessarily want to overload the network at first, especially because these are these are games, AAA games that are now running inside of Telegram, right? So they have the potential to really go viral and overload the network. So we made a lot of calculations around that, and that kind of hooks into Boudewijn's second question, which is, okay, when is the network going to be, let's say, when is the company going to be profitable on the network transactions, right? So we take 20% of the network fees, and that basically allows us that at 20 games that are deployed, whereby we assume 10 of those games are actually still in development and 10 are in operations, we would be able to completely fund all of the operations here at YOM, and that excludes all of the liquidity pool and market making revenues, right? So we put that entirely aside. We say, okay, we as a company, as an ecosystem, aim for a profit on the product value itself, on the DePIN value itself, rather than on the liquidity and the trading aspects of it, which is what actually a lot of the token projects get seduced into, right? Because at some point, your token goes so high to the moon that you make like 10 times or 100 times more money on your market making than on the product itself. And that's something that I personally also try to prevent in a way. So that may not be the best, I would say, on the short term for the token. But I feel on the long term, it's actually the best strategy. Because if we now have a token that is like worth $1 billion and we make so much money on the liquidity and the trading part of it, yeah, who's then going to build the network? Because what would be the incentive towards building that, right? So that's weird.
Again, it sounds like you're trying to make a proper business. What's going on?
Yeah, I know, right? I know. And I think in a way, a lot of the users, like a lot of the community members, they also want it, right? They want the deep value, but then again, they also want the short-term gains at the same time, right? So it's an interesting trade-off.
It can be both. It can be both.
It can be both.
Just a quickie here, actually. When you say 20 games, though, you're not talking 20 AAA games. You're talking 20 small to medium-sized games. So domination, 20,000 users per month. Small numbers. We can probably hit that within the first year. I think the numbers are, aren't they?
Right. So we have some specifics also on the average. So it would be, so if you kind of imagine like 7 tiers of games in terms of sizes, then the lowest tier would be the games that are just in development, right? They're just for internal testing purposes. So we need about 10 of those because they also pay a fixed fee every month, right? So we take that in immediately. And then we have 10 other quite low tier games that are also deploying on the network. And then the combined network activity out of that, and we're still assuming only 50% of network saturation would translate in about $120,000 per month, which is kind of like a very nice and healthy number. In fact, we would probably already reach break even way before that, but we of course also have ambitious plans going into the future where we want to hire more people, right? So I'm upscaling it to 120K in terms of operating expenses.
And again, it really, like we're saying this too, when and part of the test, part of the alpha test, we've got the first game, which is a third-person shooter. It's cartoony, it's kind of fun. If it ends up that we get like we're going to judge our assumptions based on how the community responds to that very first game. And of course, we'll have to modify that when we get a second and third game. But there's a case to be made that, what's the name of the game, Andy, the hamster one?
Oh, Combat Hamster.
Yeah. A Combat Hamster hits our network.
150 million.
And it pays for us for like a year, right? We'd be, it would take one really good viral game to fill up past 50% capacity. We'd have to go back and sell more nodes and just to up it. So it is kind of you have to make some assumptions, and some of them really can be very simple. And part of what we're, when we talk to investors and everything about what we're offering, the reason, we kind of emphasize, hey, we're not trying to find the biggest AAA game and put on our network, for a couple of reasons. But one of them has been, I said this last week, the gaming industry is stagnated. The large studios, which they're making sequels because it reduces the risk for them. They don't want to risk, spending 3 years developing a game that nobody likes. And then having blown all that money. So instead, they make the sequel, they reskin the game they just made, and it makes the industry itself stagnate. But out there are a ton of really great games that just don't get traction because they don't spend the marketing dollars. And it's hard to, people who are paying for a Steam account are jumping right to the first top 5 games. And you'll see this in the article that I release here after this, this afternoon. But there's a long tail of probably great experiences that are looking for a way to reach a bigger audience. And you're going to find some of the best game mechanics that are so addictive and so much fun in that level of game, not in the largest studio games.
Yeah, I think Nerdgasm, and by the way, wants to go even more specific. He's asking for how many users, right? So let me also define what that means, right? So we don't really talk about users, we talk about sessions, right? Now, one node maps exactly to one average concurrent user. Now, what does one average concurrent user mean? That means that one person is playing somewhere on the network. Because we know that one node maps exactly to one average concurrent user, our goal for break even would be around 2,000 average concurrent users. That immediately translates into we need 2,000 nodes online on the network, right? If you then assume that one gaming rig, like an RTX 4090, can handle 8 nodes at the same time, you can make an estimation how many GPUs you will need for YOM to run break even. Now, ACU is different from users. You can convert ACUs then also into user sessions, right? So if you assume that the network load is 50%, then you also can predict the amount of user sessions are then running for about a month or a year. Then the question is, how many players or users? Well, we don't know, right? Because some games, they handle users very differently from other games. So it could be a mini game that where every round you become a new user onto the network, which for us is a new session. So we show some maybe some advertisements in there. But on the user side, we don't know, and we don't really care that much about the users. It's all about the average concurrent sessions, right? Or the average.
No, we care about the users. We just don't. We're not the volume and numbers of.
We care about their experience, their session. We don't care necessarily about who they are.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah.
We've gone 45 minutes. We haven't talked at all about the token minting. We probably ought to touch on that, but it really is a very large subject that's going to need its own town hall. But I'm going to throw it to you real quick. What at the very highest level, the token minting, what should people know besides stay tuned? I mean, that's really the biggest piece of it.
Yes. Has been a little bit of a process, of course, because we've also inquired with the community about, okay, how do you approach this? What does the community want to do? So positioned also some suggestions there. Ideally, from a technical point of view, we go for the purest flow, which is like a layer 0 integration. So you bridge immediately from one chain to another, right? That's the purest ideal flow that we want to ideally opt for. But in order to build strategic alliances also in the space, sometimes you have to do some things to get to a higher level, right? Because while we all appreciate YOM and it's like bottom up and it's like there's no wash trading going on, it's entirely fair, we're building fundamental technology. We've also received some comments also from advisors and also from Peak, like, okay, guys, you're building very cool tech, and we like that. We really want to work with projects like yourself. However, in this industry, you also have to play the token game, right? So that token game we have to start playing as we go live with the network, and that is, I think, something that we're now carefully strategizing around. Like, how are we going to approach this token game? Are we going to, now, as I also put it into the chat, is there going to be like a big event around it? Will there be centralized exchanges? Are we going to time that with the product releases? Is it going to be, are we going to be the first token on the peak DEX, but is there no event next to it? Like, there's always a trade-off in every opportunity that you take, right? So together with our partners, we're basically exploring the path that is the most successful to all of the community, all of the bag holders, including ourselves as bag holders, of course, in the project. Right. So just keep in mind, whatever we do is always in the best interest of the people holding tokens.
Yeah, perfect. Andy? That's exactly what I just wanted to finish with on that and say it's all the bag holders that we're thinking about with the token. It's always got to be that way. Everybody's got to benefit, and if people don't benefit, then it doesn't work. You know, that's the point, isn't it?
And Urti's message, the message we got from Peak today, again, all in a positive, all in a positive direction. And again, I can't say enough nice things about the guys at Peak, the team at Peak. They've really been in our corner really since we started talking with them, which is good for us. Andy, town halls coming up. So
yeah,
you've been helping to round up some people. Why don't you go ahead and have a few words about that?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't want to ruin the stories before they come, but I'm sure everyone's heard me talking about 2 large blue chip organizations. Both of those are coming on in January. There's also actually,
one got pushed to February, I think.
One push to February. Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, these are multi-billion turnover businesses that are directly related to what we do. And on top of that, we've got some cool people coming in as well. I think it's going to be, we want the town halls to be fun for people. We want to give people information, but we also want them to learn stuff. I mean, I saw you, Jeff, reach out to the guys, if I won't mention their name, but the guys where I was stuck on a call with, I say stuck on a call with Jorrit, where they talked about metaphysics, quantum physics. And I was like, quantum physics, I'm out of my league, but it was a really interesting conversation when they related it back. And I said, listen, talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. And you're like, wow, this is cool. And some of the stuff those guys are doing that complements what we're doing, it just feels like the whole game we're playing is getting bigger.
We can actually go into this, right? So
do it.
Yeah, maybe share some alpha, because we're going to release also some a partnership with this company. Did we already mention their names? Yeah, did we?
I probably have slipped it out once already.
Okay. No, it's really cool what they are doing, right? So the only disadvantage with YOM at the moment, because we're peer-to-peer with decentralized, is that whenever you're playing a game that is multiplayer, the servers of the multiplayer game, which are CPU bound, that's not a problem we solve, but that server is still hosted somewhere on AWS, right? Giving it still some dependency to some kind of like centralized architecture. Now, the thing that the people at this particular company have resolved is
you can say the company,
scaling.
I think.
Yeah, okay, let's say Metagravity, infinite scaling.
Yeah, they're cool.
Entirely on the front end, right? Without cheating. So there has been in the past like peer-to-peer server-side multiplayer systems. They have been developed in the past, but the problem was that people were able to cheat because every client kind of like manages its own reality. And what they figured out is that every client like validates its own reality, but also the reality of the peers it's playing with, right? And then you dive into quantum field theory and such. So
and I think this becomes really interesting when you look at Fortnite. Fortnite can run 100 people in one instance, 100, and we can do 500 in YOM. But again, it doesn't go multi-continental. The Metagravity guys can do it worldwide.
There we go. So
10,000, 100,000, a million
in a
people
AK on Telegram.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Like this is next level gaming, right? This is what
That's the metaverse, right? Now I've lamented that the metaverse really couldn't have been built back when people were trying to, claim that they were building. What they were building was open world games and calling it a metaverse, which of course wasn't what it's supposed to be. You needed decentralized server, you needed decentralized clients like we deliver from YOM, and you need access through a web browser on a flat screen, because that's where people are currently. You're not going to force the entire world into a VR headset in the next 5 years. It's just not going to happen. So you go where the people are right now, which is on the screen, in the web browser, on the internet, and you put the metaverse there and you build it out from there.
It's in a way the same movement as DVDs, right? So the old school, for the young people, DVD is like a disc. You put that into your computer back in the days when computers were still partially mechanical. So you put that in a computer, and then you can watch or in your television, right? And you can watch the movie. But right now, everyone is watching shorts on TikTok, right? So we moved from landscape to vertical. We moved from a big television to mobile screen. We moved from paying upfront to advertising. We moved from long cinematic sessions to very short-term experiences and to a creator economy. And in a way, gaming is still lagging behind. So even though games are now virtual, they're still, in terms of the business model, they're distributed in a very old school fashion, right? So you still purchase a game on Steam, you have to have the hardware, you have to play it on your computer. It's very old school. And it doesn't make sense for the current times, right? So and we make sure that developers can now build a single AAA experience, and it works on your Chromecast. So your phone transforms into a controller inside of Telegram, on any website, on Netflix, doesn't matter. And it's
Endless.
It's endless. It's literally permissionless creativity, right?
So it's funny, if the year had ended at the end of January as opposed to the end of December, I think the conversation that we're having right now, given the year end, would be so much even more robust than because we'd have the games live and I expect public by the end of January. So when you I like that what we're doing, if people haven't caught on to this yet, is timing both the token launch, the live network, probably the hardware and the sex, where all these things are happening in a laid out plan to get them to kind of build on top of each other, and starting with the peak, building up our community as we've done the past month. So it starts with building the community, then it goes to getting the game live, then goes to doing the license sales, and then it does the token launch, and then it does man, it's gonna. I expect the next 3 months to be a little insane. The end of 3 months from now is GDC, so we'll take this live technology to San Francisco and show all these gaming studios what they're able to do by putting a game on Telegram, and then Katie bar the door. It's gonna be a busy year. I should mention too that I've also got my ticket for ETH Denver, so I should be able to go there as well. Whether Andy, are we planning on being at in 2025?
We'll be at Gamescom, which will be in Cologne. We'll be back in Valencia again. We'll be at 2049. I think we'll both go to both of those two again. I mean, they were brilliant events, weren't they? Obviously, even down to the connections and people we met, like the Outlier Ventures guys that Jorit met hanging around the bar, and the Peak guys that we met there. So again, we'll be at all those. I think there is you joked about this earlier, Jeff, saying you could just go to event after event after event after event. Yeah, I think there's got to be value within these projects. Me personally, I think Gamescom in Cologne and what's the one called that you just mentioned a minute ago, Jeff? In
ETH Denver.
No. The games one in
GDC. GDC, the game.
Yeah, GDC in San Fran. Yeah, those are going to be massive for us because once it's really interesting. We were talking to obviously one of the big CEOs from one of the AAA gaming companies, and one of the first things he said this is the most interesting technology that someone's launched in 5 years. Now, if you think about something like 76% of games are now on mobile, and you go back, say 10 years, mobile was seen as the place that nobody really wanted to do it. You know, it didn't make sense. You know, you got to do blah blah blah. This is where I visualize that YOM is going to be in the next couple of years, and you know, it completely makes sense. Why would you build a mobile app anymore? There's just no need. So again,
Right.
answer your question, those gaming conferences are going to be the killer ones.
Yeah. All right. What have we not touched on that we should hit before we say goodbye?
I was just going to say very quickly for Budawin, they ask, do Metagravity have a token? No, they don't, but they're going to have a token launch. I'm not sure if we're allowed to give out the numbers, but it's going to be a big one. I wouldn't be surprised if it's very big. And, you know, this is why it's quite exciting for us as well. What you can say?
Yeah, so they're actually using the serverless multiplayer technology also to build a unique new type of blockchain, right? So it's entirely different from all of the blockchains that we've seen up to now. So that's really exciting. Yeah, I think we cannot reveal a lot about that yet, but we know some of the details, and also we know that it is going to be really, really big, right? So it's very important for us also to keep them in a very close loop, I would say. Maybe also because we talked about like the events and the conferences we're going to visit, maybe also a bit more about what's coming up in terms of the tech roadmap. So when can we expect, for example?
We got the guy here who sets the milestones. Go ahead, Rohan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what we talked about is the wave one. So that is planned in January. Then we do the node licenses also in parallel. And then as part of node licenses, you'll be able to mint your license NFTs that would mostly be on peak. So that's the target. And then scaling the network as well, side by side. So wave one, wave two, wave three, and then we add node sales. And then the node sales will lead to node delegation as well. So we onboard different cloud providers, and then you can delegate your node license and then start.
Yeah, with a single click, right? So it's going to be really easy for people to start utilizing their mint. But yeah, I would say that we are going to the amount of nodes available are going to be very, very limited, right? So this will not be a massive node sale like all of the others. We will keep it very scarce because we want to match and collect data, right? So we want to match supply with demand, collect data, improve the network, right? So
we want people to get the rewards. We don't want people to get a node and not be getting any kind of reward for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I would suggest, if you've not done that yet, to go to our Discord channel and sign up also as a potential node operator, because then you will or might be selected as one of the early people who are allowed to mint on our system, right? So we don't know, we cannot really specify the exact numbers yet, but we do know that the number of nodes that we will sell will be very, very limited, right? So sign up if you haven't done that yet. And hopefully you get added as one of the first nodes onto the ecosystem.
Yeah.
But
all
the
right.
Are, go ahead. Sir.
No, I was going to say we've hit the 1 hour mark, where I generally try to keep these two because people don't click on a video on YouTube for that's more than an hour unless they're driving a very long distance.
Yeah.
They're trying to kill time. But before I do sign off and say goodbye to everybody, is there any last pieces that I didn't get in the end of your review that we talked about that's important? Sounds like no.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So the community can look for the end of year article. We'll get it up on Medium here very shortly. And then it's going to be 2025 is going to be crazy. Our next week goes into Christmas. I know that it's going to be just like in most parts of the world, kind of quieter online, but we'll still be around. I'm going to be at my desk. I work from home. Like, who's going anywhere? All right. Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. Welcome to it, Rohan.
Happy holidays, everyone. Have a great time.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Merry Christmas to
Yeah.
everyone.
Cheers.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
talk again. Oh yeah, there won't be one
Hey,
next week because
ciao,
that's
ciao.
going to be like the day after Christmas, and I'm going to probably be recovering. So we'll talk probably after the New Year.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Cool.
Be in touch.
Nice.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Take care.